Ladies and gentlemen, it is a bittersweet day for me here in Rise of Kingdoms because it is just now dawning on me that there is a good chance that I will never be using Nevsky in the open field again. This is almost as upsetting as benching my Guan Yu when Ragnar Prime came out, so let me go ahead and explain to you guys why I might actually never be using Nevsky in the open field again. But first, what's going on, guys? Cheers. Now, if you guys want to pay respects for our fallen comrade over here, drop a thumbs up on the video and consider subscribing for more Rise of Kingdoms content. But as you guys know, with the recent commander swap event, I got my hands on Arthur, okay, King Arthur, and my second swap was actually for Philip II. And at the time, my intention with Philip II was simply to have him as a placeholder commander. I didn't know what the future would hold for my account, but at least he is a generic universal leadership commander that we can pair with pretty much anybody, and so I figured he would be a safe bet because I have been hearing from people in KVK that are fighting right now. Obviously I am in home kingdom, so I'm not doing any ooh, what is this? We're in the middle of Shadow Legion, by the way. But anyway, obviously I am in home kingdom, so I'm not doing any fighting, but I've heard players say that Liu Che paired with Philip was doing really well, and a lot of players are sort of comparing it to the Liu Che Alex combination because, as you guys know, Philip also has some March speed. He gives you 35% infantry defense, and he also has 30% all damage, and his instant proc is actually an AoE with a rage reduction. And if you do the math on this direct damage factor, it comes out to be about the same as the instant proc damage from Alex. And I know you guys are thinking, well, Omniarch 800 times 3, that actually comes out to 2400, but that's not how the game actually calculates these things, because as you guys know, there is a 15% reduction per target hit. So let's assume that you hit all three targets. It would be 800 times 0.85 times 0.85 times 3, so that's 1734. So it's slightly better than the 1700 that we have here on Alexander the Great. But yeah, it looks like I won Shadow Legion. Let's go. It does require that you hit 3 targets, but it also has a rage reduction. So all in all, I would say this instant proc is definitely better than Alexander the Great's. But if you compare their entire kits for infantry, the upgrade is extremely marginal. It's like barely better, and it's not even apples to apples. Like, you're getting some pros, but you also have a lot of trade-offs. Like, if we look at Alexander the Great, he has more march speed, which is huge for infantry. He also has a shield on his active skill, a really powerful debuff on the active skill as well. He's immune to damage reduction debuffs that we see very commonly on Yue Liang and on Liu Che, and with his relic combined with the fact that he actually gets infantry defense when he has a shield as well on his 4th skill, when you compare the two kits, I mean, like, look, if I didn't have Alexander the Great, absolutely I would be doing Liu Che Philip, and maybe I'll test it in my upcoming KVK. But swapping out Alexander the Great for Philip as a secondary to Liu Che, it seems like a micro optimization. It seems like a little bit better, but it didn't seem like crazy good, right? And I know, like, there's a chance of using Liu Che's active again, but it's a 20% chance with a huge cooldown. It's really, I don't know, I don't love this Philip expertise. It's good, right? Don't get me wrong, it's good, but it's like, I don't know, I feel like it's not going to trigger as often as people think it will. So all in all, I was looking at this and I was thinking, okay, well, there's obviously something here with Philip, right? Because if I, you know, in my last few KVKs, I've been transparent with you guys, Liu Che Alex has been my best performing March, right? So if we're looking at a commander like Philip, who is, you know, being compared to Alexander the Great, then we have to think about, well, if it's not really worth the upgrade, maybe it is, maybe it's not, right? Again, I haven't tested it myself, but you know, I just can't imagine it's like a night and day difference. It's probably a small upgrade, if anything. But why would I swap one out for the other when Philip actually is not, he's not actually an infantry commander, right? Like, Alexander the Great, it has to be with an infantry pair unless you're in an artifact KVK, and even still, why would you do that? Philip is universal, right? And so we can actually take the benefits of Alexander the Great and we can kind of put it wherever we want, because he doesn't have to be paired with infantry. He can be paired with anybody, and no matter who he goes with, he's going to give them march speed, which is nice. He has the really nice instant proc with rage reduction. If you're doing mono troop type, he gets 30% all damage, and the active skill buff is really nice, just like the active skill debuff on Alexander the Great is really nice as well. And so we basically have a universal Alexander the Great now. And so I've been looking around my kit, around around my armies, around my different pairings, and I've been trying to think of like who would I actually pair him with, right? And at first I continued to look at other infantry commanders because that seems like it's the most logical. So whether you did like, you know, CPO with Philip II, because CPO has instant proc damage as well, right? A long cooldown, but it's damage over time. So like all in all, I would say that's a pretty solid pairing. Or maybe you could even consider something like Ragnar, although I don't love the Ragnar Philip pairing because Ragnar has a ton of defense already, and so he doesn't really need the defense from Philip as much as somebody like a CPO might, because CPO only has attack and health, and so the defense slides in there nicely. So, you know, I thought, okay, maybe you would do something like Liu Che Alex and then something like CPO with Philip, and then your last army pairing might be something like Guan with Ragnar if you're doing 3 different infantry pairings, right? That's something that I considered, but then I thought, well, am I really going to run 3 infantry pairs in a 5 army lineup? Probably not, right? Probably not. So then I started thinking about other pairings that we could do for Philip, and I was looking at archers, of course, right? And I think that archers are great because you get so much health and you get some march speed, which you really do need for the archers. Plus you give them some instant proc, some all damage here. I mean, really, if we're thinking about a good pairing, you could do something like Herman Prime as primary with Philip II secondary, because we have some nice march speed here as well, right? Obviously I know you guys are screaming about Zhuge Liang, which is fair. I mean, you could totally do that too, but the problem with the Zhuge Liang is, I mean, I just don't think benching Herman for Philip is going to be a great play, and just all in all. But if you wanted to bench Zhuge Liang, at least you could argue that you could poke with extra march speed here. That's the only thing I can think of. And I'm not trying to make the claim that like a Herman Philip would be a better pairing, but I'm saying if you wanted to try something out here, then you would have actually a really supported archer pairing, because you have some nice AoE, you have the poison stacks, you have 20% defense, 15% march speed, 20% attack, and then Philip would give you 35% health, 20% march speed, which would be a great stat distribution for archers. You get a bonus to the AoE skill damage here, and you have the defense reduction. I mean, there's a lot to love about the Herman Philip pairing, but again, I felt uncomfortable benching the Zhuge Liang because I'm only running 1 archer pair, right? So it felt a little bit weird for me to go ahead and do that, especially because again, you already get so much archer health from Zhuge Liang, so really it's an even trade there, but you're leaving so much damage on the table, and the Zhuge Liang Herman pairing seems really good. So then that left me to cavalry, which was kind of the last on the list, because I don't love the fact that cavalry get 35% attack here. It just seems like the least beneficial. But then I started to think more about what makes Liu Che Alex so good. What makes it so good in the first place? Well, the answer is the expertise on Liu Che, because he launches a combo attack, and the combo attack gives him a chance to proc additional basic attack triggered things. And if you look at the second skill on Alex, this is triggered on basic attacks. And so the instant proc from Alex occurs more often with Liu Che because of the combo attacks, right? And so that got me to thinking, well, we know combo attacks are part of the cavalry meta, and we just got King Arthur, who is insane, right? He's insane. All the reports show him as secondary with Huo is just Giga Chad popping off, and that's the safe play, right? Huo Arthur, no brainer, you could use that, and that's probably the best single cavalry pairing in the game right now. But let's assume for a second that we use King Arthur as the primary, right? And you might be thinking, well, you might need a lot of really good combo armaments, and you might be right there, and I definitely don't have any, but we're going to talk about formations in a second, because I don't think that that's as big of a deal as we might think when we start to consider that we can pair Arthur with Philip, right? So if we went ahead and did an Arthur with Philip, well, first of all, we have the expertise on Arthur, which gives you a 50% chance to launch a combo attack. Now, this is like you could launch multiple combo attacks in a single turn, but it has a really long cooldown, so that's unfortunate. And you also have combo attacks on the active skill here, and also in the talent tree, whenever you launch a combo attack, you have a chance to launch another combo attack, right? So with so many different ways to launch a combo attack with King Arthur, that translates into so many ways and so many chances that you can pop the instant proc from Philip. So okay, that's actually pretty good. So this kind of is looking like a similar scenario to Liu Che with Alex, right? Then we look at the rest of the kit, and for cavalry, again, we're getting 35% attack, 20% march speed. Alex gives Liu Che 30% attack, 30% march speed, so you get a little bit more attack on Philip but less march speed, which is okay because cavalry are already faster, right? So it kind of is even in the stat department from that regard. And you could also argue that like you get a lot of attack from Alexander the Great over here, and that's going to increase your damage output. But remember, you're going to get 30% all damage from Philip as well, and the active skill on Alex is super supportive with his shield and debuffing the enemy. The active skill on Philip is super supportive for yourself and your nearby friendly units. And so when you really start to think about it, the Philip II pairing behind the Arthur is kind of just a cavalry version of Liu Che Alex. Now, the downside to this King Arthur with Philip II pairing is that it is a bit squishier than the Liu Che Alex, right? And Liu Che Alex is, I would say Liu Che Alex is just a hair above a glass cannon, right? It's not pure glass cannon. There is some tankiness here, right? You have the defense from the shield. You also have the defense when you get a shield. You also have 20% defense from Alexander the Great's relic. You take 6% less normal damage. You also get 20% defense from Liu Che, and you take 20% less skill damage, right? So there is tankiness with the Liu Che Alex, but it's not crazy, right? There's literally no infantry health here, and that's a big problem. But if you look at the Arthur with Philip, you're getting a ton of attack, right? You get 30% attack here, 35 from Philip, so 65% attack, 20% health, which is nice, but no defense, right? You get no defense. There's no reduction in skill damage taken. The only other source of quote unquote tankiness would be the taking 10% less damage, or for you really it's 20% less damage for the next 2 seconds. Unfortunately, it's only for 2 seconds, but you do have the possibility of popping this again, right? So you know you're gonna take 20% less damage some of the time. That's a little bit tankiness, but all in all, like if we're being honest here, this is definitely more squishy than the Liu Che Alex, right? Especially because it's also cavalry, right? Like cavalry in general are just a little bit squishier. Luckily for Cavs, they have a lot of health on their equipment, right? Like if we just, I mean in general here, I have 38.5% cavalry health, which is crazy. Okay, and then if I look at my gear, I have 3.8% cav health on this set, but that's pretty much it. So, and we have a lot of extra defense here as well. So I mean, all in all, I think if we look at Arthur with Philip, we're looking at the cavalry version of Liu Che Alex, except I think the damage output's going to be higher, right? Because Arthur hits harder than Liu Che, straight up. It is what it is. Plus you have that 30% bonus damage to your combo attacks, and you have 30% all damage from Philip. So this is definitely going to hit harder than the Liu Che Alex. And you also get a lot of rage reduction here, right? Whenever you launch a combo attack, you have a 30% chance to reduce the target's rage by 100 every second for 2 seconds with a 5-second cooldown, and you have the rage reduction on the AoE instant proc from Philip. So I would argue that this is going to be dealing more damage and is going to be more supportive than the Liu Che Alex, and it's probably going to be as fast or faster than them because it's cavalry. The downside is that it's going to be a bit more squishy, right? And to me, that is a trade-off that I'm probably willing to take, because again, the Liu Che Alex is just so good. If you can poke effectively in a big murder ball, Liu Che Alex absolutely pops off, and the ability to have a second army that can do that and arguably deal more damage, and as long as you're careful and not getting swarmed down, I mean, I think that this could be an insanely good pairing. Now the question becomes, what about the armaments, right? What if you don't have a good Delta formation? Well, great news, you kind of don't need the Delta formation to do what we're trying to do here, right? We're not going all in on combo attacks, we're going all in on poking, and the poking here is not combo attack damage. This is literally just regular skill damage factor, right? And so in that way, what you could do if you don't have a good Delta formation armament set is you could just use the arch formation, right? And if you've been using Liu Che Alex, then you've probably been collecting the arch formation armaments anyway. And the cool part about arch is that it deals 5% more normal damage, which means it's going to increase your combo attack damage by 5%, right? Which isn't as good as the 10% from Delta formation, but it's every turn. It's every normal attack. It's not just when you do combo attacks, it's every normal attack. And yes, this will apply to the active skill on King Arthur, right? If we look at King Arthur's active skill, the combo attacks, it says right here, combo attack damage is affected by bonuses to normal damage, right? So if we actually use the arch formation, then we get a 5% bonus to normal damage, which is a 5% bonus to the active skill on King Arthur if he's primary, right? If he's secondary, it's skill damage, that doesn't apply, but in this instance he's going to be primary, and so in this instance you're still going to get half of the value of using the Delta formation. Now you're not going to have any of the special inscriptions or anything like that, of course. Like that would be awesome, right? Like if you have steel skin, that would be great. If you have butterfly, even better, right? I mean, that's really nuts. If you have flurry, right, like incredible. These are really good things. So if you have it, great. But in a pinch, if you're just building a poking army, you could absolutely use the arch formation for King Arthur with Philip, and you could effectively just run this as the cavalry version of Liu Che Alex. And if history repeats itself here, I suspect that this pair could be really, really good. Now, if you do dueling results, if you duel King Arthur with Philip and you duel it against anything else that's infantry meta or any meta for that matter, it's probably going to lose, right? It's going to get wrecked. And that's, I mean, the Liu Che Alex loses duels all the time. It's not a good dueling march. And so if you do like test results for this, it's going to look really, really bad. But you have to consider how this is going to work in actual fighting. If you're actually in a murder ball, if you're actually going in and out of combat and just poking the target and running away, then I think you're going to pop off here, right? I think that there's absolutely something here. And so then the question becomes, well, okay, if I'm running 2 cavalry armies, which I do, then who am I going to bench in order to make the Arthur Philip combo work? Well, the question is, I mean, we're not benching Joan. She's going to be the secondary of whoever the primary is. So then the question is, do we run Nevsky Joan or do we run the Huo Joan? And historically for me, my Huo Joan has been performing better, just straight up. In every KVK that I've been in recently, if I run Huo Joan, it performs better than my Nevsky Joan, and it's only a little bit better, but it's still better. And so most likely my 2 cavalry armies going into my next KVK are probably going to be Huo Joan with Arthur Philip, right? Which sounds insane, because going into 2025, and even when I saw King Arthur come into Rise of Kingdoms, I did not expect to bench my Nevsky. I mean, Nevsky has been a Giga Chad since the beginning of 2022, right? It's been 3 years basically at the time of recording this that Nevsky has been a Giga Chad, okay? And I mean, I could be wrong here. Let me be honest. I could be wrong. The Arthur Philip, even though it has all the same synergies and things going for it that we see in Liu Che Alex, it could be the case that it's just too squishy and you can't do it, right? That's totally possible. But you know, if I'm wrong here, then of course we're gonna run Huo with Arthur, and then we run the Nevsky with Joan, and you're popping off. I mean, those 2 pairings are insane, right? And so I don't want you guys to think that Nevsky is dead, because he's not dead. He's amazing, right? And especially if you don't have the Philip, then you know, obviously you're gonna do that. But I'm really like starting to be convinced here that the Arthur Philip could be the play, right? And again, if I'm effectively gonna get another Liu Che Alex out of my armies, like sign me up. That's absolutely what I want to do here, because that army has performed so well for me lately that if I can just replicate those results again, then I think I'm going to go ahead and do it. So that's kind of what I'm looking at here for my armies. If I come in and grab the arch formation and we start to look at, you know, do I even have anything for cavalry here? The answer is kind of, right? Kind of. If we have inscriptions on it, this is, you know, 2.5% attack. This is going to be 30% chance for extra skill damage, 2.5% health. This is pulverize. I mean, this actually could be pretty good, but it's only for 1 second. So in the horn slot, I have this armament, which is crazy good. Right now it's on my Gorgo for garrison, because you get 1% all damage, 1.5% normal damage, which again works for combo attacks. And then I've got really nice stats here, right? Then we come over here to the emblem slot and we have resistance, 1.5% extra counterattack damage. This is 1% more normal damage. I mean, there you go right away. Forceful, we have 3% extra normal damage. That's not super great, but we could do something like 1% more normal damage. I could do that. And then here we have Eclipse, takes 2.5% less skill damage, so I could throw that on there. And again, like if we throw this Gorgo armament on here, I mean, with absolutely no extra investment or spending any other currencies, I get 7.5% health, 9.4% defense, 5.3% attack, and we get a 30% chance for an extra pop of damage factor, 1% all damage, 1.5% normal damage, damage, 2.5% less skill damage taken, and another 1% normal damage. So all in all, 2.5% extra normal damage and 5% more normal damage. I don't even have to invest in the combo delta formation, right? And that's not even to mention that first of all, I've been kind of throwing out all but the best of the cavalry arch formations I've been getting, but like I've got 123 of these I can use. I mean, I don't know, like I can just pop all these open for arch and all of a sudden I can keep the cav ones and I can keep the infantry ones. I mean, that sounds good to me, right? And then I don't even have to go all in on the delta formation if I don't want to, but you know, obviously it would be better if I did, but if I don't, that's perfectly fine for me, especially because this is really just going to be a poking army. Like I'm really just going to go in and out of combat anyway, right? So I don't know, I mean, to me this seems like a really interesting strategy that I'm going to definitely try in my upcoming KVK. We haven't, you know, figured out when we're going to register yet, so I don't think we're going to be in KVK in the next few weeks anyway, but it's definitely something that I am strongly considering, and I want to know what you guys think, because this video obviously is a lot of theory crafting, but I just can't see the flaw in this pairing besides being a little bit squishy, right? It's a little bit squishier than the Liu Alex, and so I'm curious to know how this is actually going to do. If you guys have the King Arthur Philip combo and you're in KVK, give this a try and let me know what you guys, you know, what you experience. If you have experience with Liu Alex and you know how to use Liu Alex effectively, let me know what you think about the King Arthur Philip combo. Is this something that is, you know, possibly going to be used often, or is this like a niche thing, or have I completely lost my mind? Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below, because I'm really excited to give this a try. I'm happy to see how this goes when we actually jump into KVK. And as far as talents go, I mean, the cavalry tree is historically very good. I really like it a lot. And then you come over here and, you know, you go all the way up to the iron and steel talent, and honestly I'd probably skip this entirely. Impenetrable, right? Like, yeah, you take less damage, but it's under 50%. Maybe we would want to grab this for the extra tankiness, but honestly, you know, with this pairing that we're talking about specifically, if you're under 50%, you're probably dead anyway, right? And so that's that. A good day to die does give you more 3% all damage taken, but you boost your combo attack damage, and so I mean, this is effectively a 6% bonus to the active skill on King Arthur, which I think is really nice. And ideally, if we're poking, then hopefully we're not taking too much damage to begin with, right? So this is the talent tree. I'm going to give it a shot. We'll see how this actually goes. Of course, we have the health reduction here as well, which is really cool. And honestly, you know, if we're talking about, you know, gear, I would probably still go with the ring and horn. I feel like one of the downsides of the combo tree is that you'll really only get rage from no quarter here. Obviously we still have the rage from you know, Undying Fury and stuff, but in the combo tree you only get rage from combo attacks, and so I feel like you might want to run the horn here. I haven't done any testing yet, so I'm not actually sure. Obviously with Liu Alex you don't typically need the horn. With this pairing you might want it just in case, especially because you deal so much damage with the active skill on Arthur. You want to pop it as much as possible, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. Ring and horn probably makes the most sense even for this. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below about this pairing. While you're down there, drop a thumbs up on the video. It really helps out the channel. It kind of helps get this video out into the YouTube algorithm so other Rise of Kingdoms players might see it. And comment down below your thoughts on this, and consider subscribing if you're new here and you want more Rise of Kingdoms videos. With that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been Omniarch. I will talk to you guys again soon. Peace.